please.
Reeve Sandberg, MD of Willow Creek. Thank you, Premier, for all the good work that the government is doing. One of the issues these past few days here has been Section 619 of the MGA that has to do with these semi-judicial judiciary committees such as the NRCB and the AUC. And it has to do primarily with our land use bylaws. And we know that these boards can supersede us with these new energy developments, and for example, even with the NRCB with confined feeding operations, we're running into situations where they apply to these bodies, they get approvals before we as a local municipality have anything to do with them other than the development stage. So our concern is, where is the responsibility and why do we even exist with our land use bylaws if that section of the MGA supersedes us?
Thank you for that. I think there's sort of two ways that I might want to tackle that issue, because it might have two solutions for it. So since no one took me up on asking me what I thought of 20,000 megawatts of solar being built on prime agricultural land, let me take a moment to tell you what I've learned in the last week. When I met with the electricity generators over the last week, and we came close twice over winter in having grid failure. And part of the reason for that, I am told, is that we have 5,000 megawatts of installed power of wind and solar. And one of the big Alberta Clipper rests over us, and we've got snow and ice covering solar panels, and the wind turbines aren't working. 5,000 megawatts of installed was only generating 100 megawatts of power. So when we look at a proposal for 20,000 megawatts of new solar and wind, my principal concern is grid stability. And we will not have grid stability if all of that ends up getting built out. So that's number one, is that this is a natural gas basin. We are a natural gas province, and we will continue to build natural gas power plants because that is what makes sense in Alberta. And there is a great opportunity for us to use carbon capture, utilization, and storage to reduce emissions, and that also allows for us to have lower overall emissions and meet federal targets. But I raise that because we're in court this week with the federal government over Bill C-69. And we've called it the No More Pipelines Bill, but I've called it the No More Build Anything Anywhere in Alberta Without Federal Approval Bill, because they don't want us to be able to build 75 kilometers of new highway without an environmental assessment federally. They don't want us to be able to build any new natural gas plants higher than 200 megawatts without federal approval. There's a whole pile of other things. So they're using their power that they've given themselves over the environment to completely invade our provincial jurisdiction. There's a reason our Constitution under Section 92A gives electricity generation to the provinces. And it's because of our geographic differences. Yes, hydro makes perfect sense in Quebec and BC and Manitoba. And Ontario has nuclear and hydro as well. But we have to keep on fueling our economy with natural gas power plants. We're getting to a point of grid stability, so I'm just not going to let that issue of the federal government wanting to invade our jurisdiction compromise our ability to do what we need to do here. So to me, I'll tell you what I've observed that happens. Solar and wind don't seem to generate much electricity for us, but it does generate carbon credits, which are purchased by Ontario companies to offset and improve their ESG scores, right? And I can tell you that we have to have a better balance. I'm supportive of solar and wind projects where they make sense. But I can tell you from my own conversations with people in my own community that putting solar panels on prime agricultural land does not make sense, especially if it's not producing power. Especially like the one I drive past in Brooks every day, I go down there, is covered with ice and snow and not generating any power at all. The other thing I've heard about wind turbines is that I understand, is it annoying that we can't land fixed wing medevac planes now because wind turbines have been built too close to the landing runway? I've talked to a neighbor in the Medicine Hat area who says that her property, she can't do aerial spraying now because the neighbor approved turbines that are too close to her property. So when you start seeing these projects impacting the ability of the work that you do, we have to put some more fences around that. So that is a very active conversation that we are having right now, is how do we get to a better balance? How do we make sure that reliability and affordability are essential decision-making points as we approve these power projects? So that's, I hope, going to address one of the issues that you have on the AUC, making decisions that seem to override what some of the municipalities want to do. Now, the other one on intensive livestock operations, I think I'll need to get more feedback on that one, because it looks to me like we want to maintain the rural character of rural communities. And while I accept that sometimes the intensive livestock operations might cause additional impact on the community, I want to make sure that we have an environment that's going to continue to support that as well. So I think there probably needs to be a bit more interaction between our government and your governments so that we make the right decisions. But I think that has been just an essential part of making sure that our beef industry remains healthy and vibrant, and we've got to make sure that we're supporting that. Maybe there's an issue as well of cumulative issues. I know that we're talking about biodigesters in my community around High River. I've been told by the company that biodigesters are actually a very common aspect of any intensive livestock operation in Germany to be able to mitigate against smells. And so I think that with technology we should be able to address some of the harms. But I accept the fact that it's got to be very frustrating for municipalities. You're the ones who are impacted by this. If there's extra costs associated with upgrading transportation, you're the ones who are having to shoulder that cost. So we've got to be a bit more interactive about how we deal with that. And I'm sure I'll hear more from Paul McLaughlin about how to solve this problem.